Beach FM, locals talking to locals.
And we welcome the Mayor of the Kapiti Coast, Mayor Gurunathan. Good morning and welcome to you, sir.
Good morning, John. Good morning to our listeners.
It's been quite a week, lots happening, and I think we should start with the airport because you mentioned this to me last week. It may have been off air, but did you have any inkling that it was going to get so serious so quickly?
No. We knew that there were new owners for the airport, right?
Yes.
And of course, we knew that they were taking control of the assets that they bought off the Todd Group back in last year, and around November or earlier than that, they were supposed to take over. Then, of course, we never had a chance to meet them. The COVID got in the way, like everything else.
Yes.
And then suddenly it started to move quite fast. But having said that, first time I met them was on last Thursday, the previous week, Thursday, when they came and saw us and talked about the airport and the plans and stuff like that. They gave the impression to me that the airport was being unsustainable. But this is a discussion we've had every time a new owner takes charge of the assets. You know, when Murray Cole bought it, originally 2005, 2006, he said that. Following that, that was 1996 when he bought that. 2006, we heard that from Noel Robinson, and then we heard the same thing again when Noel Robinson sold that to the Top Group.
And one would assume that they've done their due diligence and they'd realise that this was the financial situation and likely to remain that way, and therefore you'd think that would be figured into the price that they paid.
That's right. But I think in terms of the new owner, the Templeton Group, I think because they bought a suite of properties from Todd Group right across the country, this was just one of them. And my understanding is they had a confidentiality clause involved that they were not able to do sort of this type of due diligence on individual properties earlier. I don't know. That's what they say.
Right. Okay. Well, let's move on. We have a situation. Tim Costley's leading a group which is stridently objecting to the converting of an airport into possibly housing land. And where does the council stand on this?
Well, I think one of the things you've got to understand is really that for council, we are caught with the RMA. This is a privately owned property. The moment the Crown sold the property, we are now in a different situation. The plan change 73 and the other plan changes and all that are situations where they come with a request, and we have to go through the RMA process. We can't get out of it.
So when you say RMA, is this there'd be rezoning involved in this, wouldn't there? If they were going to change the purposes of that property, they'd have to apply for rezoning. Where does the RMA come into that?
Well, the RMA is the regulatory, the laws that will decide what you can do with a particular piece of land. Now, when you look at the current situation, there's a particular area that's zoned, airport operational area.
Yes.
Now, if they want to change that, they have to come to the council and request for a plan change. And then they'll obviously be notified. So it's going to take quite a few years for that to happen. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I know is our current district plan is not, it's only at the status of a proposed district plan. It's not an operational district plan.
Yes.
So normally the law around that is, the general law, that you can't introduce a private plan change until the existing proposed district plan becomes an operational plan.
Yes.
For 2 years after that. So we are just about, I think, in another few months, we may be at a position where this becomes an operational district plan. Then for 2 years, we cannot introduce a private plan change. So there's a lot of time involved in this. But having said that, they can just, the way they're going about it, if they lob off let's say the business park area and sell it off, then how sustainable can the airport be? Because when Noel Robinson bought it, the plan changes that he introduced was given the green light because the commercial properties and all that, the generation of profits will go towards the operation of the airport.
Mm.
There's nothing, I've checked with my own RMA law sources, and there's very little we can do to stop them from selling those pieces of land off. So what will happen is we could be in a situation where the airport becomes inoperational, but just left there.
Oh,
with the airport zoning left down there.
Yes.
So it's like what people call a paperweight.
Yes. Yes, I see.
We don't want that to happen.
That also brings in the other dimension of the original privatisation of the airport. The land was, as I understand, acquired originally under the Public Works Act, which I believe requires surplus land to be offered back to the original owners. However, if it's no longer airport land, don't you think that the original owners would then have a claim?
Well, put it this way. In 1939, it was sold for defense purposes, bought under the Public Works Act, 1939. And then when it was sold in 1995, 96, what the government did to sidestep the offer-back provision of the Public Works Act was they formed an airport company. The Crown formed the Parappa Airport Company, and then sold the shares in the company to Murray Cole and to others. So they avoided the offer back. And so when this was contested by the original Maori landowners,
yes,
in the Environment Court, and this is interesting, the Environment Court said, this court is not the court to bring these original land matters, ownership matters to. They were only dealing with the RMA factors. So it goes back to the Crown. And what we know is last year, finally, the Waitangi Tribunal set hearings here. They had a couple of hearings in Tiatiawa, and people within the Tiatiawa, including the original owners of the airport, have put a very strong case for the sort of stuff that's happened where the land has been alienated and never offered back to them.
Yes.
So, but the tribunal is not expected to give its verdict for another year or a half or so.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, so we're stuck there. So the key point is, if these people want to make want to squeeze or cut the oxygen off the airport in terms of funding for its operation, there's going public. We know we have a very strong public who will be opposed to any sort of undermining of a sustainable airport. So that's where we are at the moment. Round number 3, I think this is to fight for the airport.
You've often pointed out the strategic importance of the airport. Do you think the council should be involved in any discussions over future ownership of that land?
Right. So let's put it into perspective. I think the political will is there, but the political will can only be expressed if there's ratepayer support for it. If you look at the Gateway project, where we've got $2 million from the government free money coming in, and we have to put up our 2.3 ratepayer money to meet that. Already we have people saying, where's the business case for us to invest the ratepayer money to have a gateway, which is, I think, is a very important project. So we need a business plan to convince those people. Mm-hmm. So we can't have one set of principles for one project and a different set of principles for the other project.
Well, not necessarily. There's been a suggestion that perhaps that land could be made into housing or other purposes, providing part of the deal was setting aside land to the north of Peka Peka to build a new airport. Would you support that kind of operation?
No, I think what we have is the current airport is functional. I think it will do, if you look at the new technologies coming in, the electric airplanes and sort of the drone technology, you don't need to increase the runway. We can do this. But the thing is, if you lose the airport land now, you'll never get it back.
And don't you think there's any possibility of a new airport to the north of Peka Peka?
Well, you got to start buying the land now. I cannot see the whole. I don't know. Other people have talked about it. I think there was a mayoral candidate some years, 2 trienniums back.
That's right.
From the Wellington mayoral candidate was speaking in terms of that kind of vision. But at the moment, all I'm concentrated on is holding on to what we've got now. And I think I'm looking forward to talk to the original landowners, EV,
yes,
to make a push for the government to step in,
yes,
rather than waiting. I
well,
think that's critical.
We've seen a recent example in Auckland, actually quite close to the airport, up in Auckland, where private land has become involved in discussions which may apply to the Kapiti Airport situation. So
you're talking the Ihumatu situation.
Yes.
Yeah, and that opens up a whole lot of other things because the government may have to step in and buy it off the private landowners.
That's
or
right.
Sometimes what they do is they give you enough to the EV, enough cash, and it's up to the EV to make the negotiations.
Yes. Or in that case, it may be the Maori King who got involved in it. However, let's move on to another pressing issue, which has really re-emerged in the last week or so, and that's the COVID-19, the pandemic response. Once again, we're at level 2, and what does this mean for the Kapiti Coast District Council?
Well, again, level 2, when we were waiting on Friday, we had all the possible expectations that we may be stepping up to level 3. So the council staff and the chief executive had all these people all quite ready, the welfare team and the teams to be working on our water, wastewater, stormwater resources. The people are getting ready. But luckily, we are still on level 2. But John, you and I have been talking about this for a number of times that we cannot, fix the borders for 100%.
That's right.
Somewhere, some person at some time will breach it, and therefore that's become, I suppose, true in a sense. So for Kapiti Coast, one of the key things has been the immediate lockdown, I think, but this was done by the industry itself. The retirement homes have, I think, basically gone into level 4.
That's right.
Not a lot of news about it, but they've taken direction, and we know they're one of the more vulnerable communities, and we've got a large number of them. And so they've basically gone into level 4. So hopefully the Auckland people behave themselves and be diligent enough to know that whatever happens there is going to affect the whole country.
Absolutely. Have you put the emergency office back into operation?
No, we haven't. In the Wellington region, that hasn't been triggered off.
Well, let's hope it doesn't have to be triggered off, and let's hope that we can get through and the current outbreak has been contained. I must say, so far, it seems as if there's a semblance of control, so we can but hope. And we can but thank you for joining us this morning, Mayor Gurunathan from the Kapiti Coast District Council. Thank you for your company.
Thank you, John. Thank you to the listeners.
106.3 Beach FM.